There's a place hidden deep within the dense forests of northern West Virginia, where even the animals seem reluctant to tread. Locals call it Coldwater Hollow, a stretch of wooded land so silent and soaked in darkness that daylight barely penetrates the thickets. It's not found on maps anymore, and those who still remember it speak only in whispers, if they dare to speak at all. This story begins in the fall of 1997. The leaves had just turned, and a 26-year-old environmental field technician named Robert Maddox had been contracted by a local firm to conduct soil and water tests for a proposed gas line that would slice straight through Coldwater Hollow. Robert was new to West Virginia, having moved from upstate New York a few months prior. He was curious, adventurous, and more than a little skeptical of ghost stories. In fact, when his supervisor mentioned the hollow and laughed nervously, warning him to avoid staying after dark, Robert simply smirked and made a note to double-check the soil near the supposedly haunted stream. He arrived in Coldwater Hollow just past 9 a.m. on October 13th. It was a gray Monday, the kind of morning that seemed already half asleep. The sky was choked with a thin fog that clung to the treetops like smoke. Robert parked his company truck at the end of a dirt road and hiked half a mile into the forest with his gear: water sampling tubes, pH meters, a portable GPS, and a two-way radio. He carried a thermos of coffee and wore a red windbreaker that cut sharply through the muted greens and browns of the wilderness. At first, the hollow seemed like any other Appalachian forest, quiet, still, and filled with the distant rustle of squirrels and birds. But as Robert trekked deeper into the gorge, that ambient sound began to fade. The further he went, the quieter it became, until there was nothing but the sound of his own boots crunching the leaf litter. It wasn't just silent, it was oppressive, the kind of silence that makes you hyper-aware of your own breathing. He reached the old stream bed by 11 a.m. It was shallow, more of a trickle than a proper creek, with strangely dark water and a coldness that didn't match the autumn air. He knelt to collect a sample, dipping the tube beneath the surface. That's when he heard the whisper. At first he thought it was the wind, but there was no wind, just dead stillness. Then he heard it again, a soft female voice, almost singing, almost crying. He stood up, spun around. Nothing. The forest was motionless, empty. "Hello?" he called out. No answer. He scanned the woods, the hair on his neck rising. He was alone, or so he told himself. After a few minutes, he chalked it up to imagination and moved on. He took 3 more samples, each time feeling more unnerved, more watched. By 2 p.m., he was eager to leave. The silence was giving him a headache, and something about the air felt wrong, heavy, like it was pressing against his skin. But then he saw it. A house, no, more like a cabin, sunken and nearly consumed by vines about 50 yards off the trail. It was unlisted on any survey documents, and its existence intrigued Robert. Curiosity overruled caution. He approached slowly, brushing aside branches, stepping carefully. The cabin leaned to one side, rotting from years of neglect. The door hung open on rusted hinges. He called out again, louder this time. "Hello? Anyone here?" Only silence replied. Inside, the air smelled like damp earth and mold. Dust hung thick in the beam of his flashlight. There were remnants of furniture, an old table, a chair with a broken leg, a fireplace stuffed with ashes. On the mantel, he noticed a framed photograph, half faded, showing a family of 3. A man, a woman, and a young girl with braids. Something about their expressions was off. The girl's smile looked forced. The father's eyes were shadowed. The mother's face seemed tired, even mournful. Then came the thud upstairs. It was sharp, deliberate, a single footstep. Robert froze. Another thud. Closer. He backed toward the door. Another step. This one directly overhead. His flashlight flickered. Thence when he saw the child. A little girl, no older than 8, standing just beyond the stairs. Her dress was white and torn. Her hair was matted. She had no shoes. Her eyes, God, her eyes were hollow. Not figuratively, literally hollow. 2 black pits stared at him, unblinking. Robert stumbled backward and bolted from the cabin. He ran until his lungs burned, not stopping until he reached the truck. As he drove away, the forest seemed to close in behind him like a living thing. He never returned to Coldwater Hollow. But the story doesn't end there. Over the next few weeks, Robert changed. He stopped returning calls. He slept with the lights on. He began hearing things at night, whispers through the walls, footsteps across his ceiling. Once he woke up with dirt on his feet and leaves in his bed, though he hadn't left his apartment. By December, he had a full mental breakdown and was hospitalized for hallucinations. His co-workers dismissed it as stress. Only one of them, an older technician named Dale, believed Robert. Dale had grown up in a town bordering the hollow. He'd heard stories, dozens of them, of people who went into the forest and came out wrong, or didn't come out at all. He told the firm to shut down the gas project. They didn't listen. In March of 1998, 2 more surveyors entered the hollow. Only one returned, and he refused to speak again, ever. As for the legend of the girl in the cabin, it's older than anyone remembers. Some say the house once belonged to a preacher who moved into the forest with his wife and daughter during the early 1900s. After his wife died of scarlet fever, something snapped inside him. He became obsessed with purity, with cleansing sin. Locals say he drowned his daughter in the stream to wash away her wickedness, then hanged himself in the attic. Others claim the girl never died, at least not in the usual sense. They say she still walks the woods, whispering through the trees, searching for someone to take her home. Witnesses describe hearing her sing lullabies that dissolve into sobs. A few unlucky ones claim to have seen her, always at dusk, always watching. One hiker in 2003 reported finding his tent slashed open in the morning, muddy footprints surrounding his sleeping bag, small barefoot prints that led into the woods and simply disappeared. There was even a case in 2010 when a group of amateur ghost hunters went to Coldwater Hollow. They brought thermal cameras, EVP recorders, all the usual gear. Their footage was never released to the public, but one of the team members anonymously posted a written account on a paranormal forum. It claimed they picked up a child's voice on tape, repeating the phrase, "He said I had to be clean. But I'm still dirty." 3 of the 5 team members quit ghost hunting entirely. The other 2 disappeared 6 months later during a trip to investigate another site in Ohio. Their bodies were never found. Today, Coldwater Hollow remains off-limits, not officially, but by reputation. Hikers avoid it. Hunters steer clear. Even locals who cut trees for a living refuse to touch the timber within the hollow's bounds. It's as if the land itself is cursed, soaked in something far older and darker than any story could capture. And as for Robert Maddox, he died in 2009 in a psychiatric hospital in Virginia. His final words, according to staff, were barely audible. He whispered, "She found me again." She never stopped singing. What haunts Coldwater Hollow isn't just a ghost. It's a memory, an echo of pain, sorrow, and rage trapped in time. And if you're ever walking deep in the forests of West Virginia and the wind dies down and the silence begins to scream, run. Because in that silence, she waits, and she is always listening.